Here we are. We are. This is a very special webcast. This is the first time we've ever taken this show on the road. We're here live at Gagnon Sports in Oshawa, Ontario. This is pretty exciting. That we've got a live crowd in the house, and two very important guests, very important guests if we include Justin in the mix. So we'll start the show off with I'm Ian West, the guy behind FearFishing, pretty much. Rich, you didn't cut me off. This is the first episode ever. You didn't jump right in there.
I'm not saying a word until I'm asked.
A bit of a demotion there.
I'm just on the couch tonight.
You're taking it easy.
I'm sitting back.
Oh, I'm sure by the end of this we'll have heard lots from you. So again, I'm Ian West. Justin, introduce yourself.
Hey, Justin Pardy from Gagnon Sports.
Now you can speak, Rich.
Rich on the street.
Rich on the street.
Rich on the street.
I'm Marley Horniak.
And I'm Amber.
Amber, that's for you, fathead.
Hi, Fathead.
And our producer again. Introduce yourself there, young man. Oh, he's got to grab his microphone. Amateur hour.
It's Adam Scriber.
That a boy.
There you go.
That was a good introduction, Adam. You're stepping the game up week by week.
Also for Fathead there, we have officially fizzed Rich.
We have.
But I'm not in the chair.
Well,
We fizzed Amber, too.
Ouch.
It's been a hard week here at FearFishing. So, Justin, let's start this off and, give us the history of Gagnon Sports, because we've all been here. Like, when I was a kid, I remember the old store, the old setup, and it was a big deal when I was 5 years old to come here, and my parents would bring me here, and we'd buy a fishing rod and a couple lures, and back then you couldn't get fishing gear anywhere else other than Gagnon Sports, and it's evolved. This place is a lot bigger than it used to be.
Yeah, it's we started out small little place in like 1973. I wasn't even born yet.
Yeah.
And then just kept growing and growing, and we saw the passion for the outdoors. I mean, our whole family is based on the outdoors, really.
Yep.
So my dad's side, all they did was hunt and fish, and all the my mom's side, the Gagnon side is all we did is hunt and fish and trap, and that was it, man. So pretty much born into the blood of it, and just built it off of that.
It's like a family affair, and that's what it's a lot. It's like that a lot for most families. That there's not many guys who jumped into fishing by themselves. It's a family thing. My family used to take me fishing. As bad as they were at fishing, we used to go a lot. Yeah, that's right,
that's
absolutely.
Where it starts. Yeah, definitely. Get your kids out there and just get them going, because then it's a family tradition, and it just keeps moving on. And I mean, it's way better than having your kids melt their brain in front of a TV. So.
Absolutely, and everybody doesn't have to be a professional angler.
No,
it's fun just to go stand on a dock and use a worm and a bobber and catch some fish.
Yeah, I mean, I love when kids come in here. I just give them free lures, and I love just watching them come back and they go, man, I caught the biggest fish, and like to me that's job done.
Yeah, for sure. and that's one of the pleasures is that you get to sell the product, but then you get to hear what's working.
Yeah.
And people's like life-changing experience. When somebody catches a 5-pound bass, it's like a game changer, or their first steelhead or anything.
Yeah, I mean, the first 5-pounder, everybody freaks out, loses their pants, but yeah.
Yeah,
I still do.
Yeah, no doubt you do, Rich.
I wet my pants every time.
It doesn't happen that often, but yeah, I've seen it.
Well, I wet them netting them too. So.
Yeah. Over the years, since your tenure here, have you noticed more young people into fishing?
Yes.
Is there more young people coming in here to buy gear without their parents or with their parents?
Because of the internet, they're so tech savvy now. Like
For sure. Yeah.
Before you'd go to a sportsman show or the spring fishing show, and that's where you found out about the new products and stuff like that. Now the kid comes in, he's if I'm not on the top of my game, I mean that kid's telling me everything about the brand new reel. I'm like, what the hell is going on here? The kid's 12 and he's staring at me. What? It's got 12 bearings and it's got hey,
Fishing is not such a bridged sport anymore. Back in the old days when you had to be taught how to get on into stuff or spend 10 years learning to do something, you can just go online now in 20 minutes get a brief explanation on how to catch a steelhead or how to flip a jig or
Yeah, it'll give you the basic fundamentals, but there's nothing like getting out there. You know that.
yeah, for
With all
sure.
the time on the water is, and I'm lucky. I'm fortunate that I was born in this thing, and I have been fortunate enough to go on some wild fishing trips with some amazing companies and good friends like Jp and Mercer, and and have done all the
Ooh,
Mexicos
name
and-
dropping now.
Name dropping. Throwing the guests out there. What give us one of your most memorable fishing trips.
Oh, definitely Lake Backrack, Mexico, with Shimano,
Really?
hands down. I went with the Azumi brothers and Mercer, and a few other fellas from the Shimano Corporation. Just badass, wicked.
That's awesome.
First day, third cast, 10.5 pounder.
Wow.
So I mean,
Wow.
you're like, what the? And
I've never even seen one that big.
That's
No.
I think that was the last cast I made. I think
Really?
I drank a cooler, that Yeti cooler. I drank the whole thing. That was
That was
good.
it.
I was like, I'm good, man. I'm out.
That's kind of like the a long time ago, Marley and I found this back lake, and we might have been there twice, and I landed about a 22-pound laker, and Marley was like, "We're never coming back because you will be chasing this dream forever."
Yeah.
And
You can't do any better than that.
can't do any better than that. That's it.
Yeah, man. Once you do that, you're chasing it. You're chasing it.
It's like the Batista, the bat.
Bat toss.
I've done it. I've done it.
Yeah. So, yeah, no, I mean, I really appreciate, you guys helping us out and coming in. And I remember you coming in.
Yeah, as a
We
kid.
were both like little
Yeah,
kids.
yeah,
Hey,
yeah.
hey, what's going on?
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. Like, this was a huge ordeal when I was a kid to come here, because there wasn't any there. You could get hooks at Canadian Tire or something, but if you wanted some tackle
Yeah.
or like a float rod or, to meet somebody, this was the place to come.
Yeah. I
'Cause
mean,
I can remember everybody being here when
Yeah.
throughout the years at some point. Every Canadian celebrity's been here working or doing a show or
And now it's everyone just comes in with a coffee and they just hang around the counter. It's so funny.
Loitering.
and talking about the latest products.
Yeah, shooting the shit mostly, lying.
But that's the community of fishing, and
Yeah.
that's what hasn't changed in 40 years of fishing. Is there's still lots of lying going on,
Yeah.
and there's lots of guys who just want to sit around and talk about fishing.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, I talk about it every day, so and then I want to go out to dinner or something. Hey, Justin, I was out the other day, and I'm like, oh my god, I talk fishing all day. Like I just want to have dinner. It's
So
funny.
leave Justin alone when
Yeah.
you see him out
no,
to dinner.
it's my job, so I just smile.
It's
Yeah.
like TMZ.
Yeah.
Oh my God, there's Justin.
But-
So, this store alone just shows how much fishing has evolved. Like 20 years ago, there was no such thing as a swim bait.
No.
No, not only has the store evolved, but fishing has evolved along with it, and fishing is evolving faster than anybody can keep up to.
It's a quick game, man. It changes, and hence, that's why I take off and go to these tackle shows, and I cast for one, so you can be on top of your game. And the competition now with the box stores rolling in, you got to be on it, and you don't have too much time to react to anything. So you got to be the first cat on the block with the coolest gear and the coolest shit, and that's the way it goes, man.
And absolutely, and the difference between like a small wholesome store like this and one of those big chain stores
Yeah.
is you can come in here and talk fishing with the same people over and over again.
Yeah.
Like, not only do you get fishing gear, but it becomes like shopping with friends, and that's the big thing here. And it a whole lot hasn't changed with the people, because I know lots of your the people who work for you in the store have been here since I was a little kid.
Oh man.
Yeah.
They've most of changed my diapers. So, but
You
it's
just admitted that on camera.
Yeah.
it's all good.
That's out there now.
I was born on the floor, man. I was born right here. So, but no, I love it, and I feel very fortunate to have been, growing up in this stuff, and and I love it.
It is for sure. Like, fishing is not one of those things. When fishing is deep inside you, Amber can talk. Like, we don't do anything at the house that's not fishing. We don't do anything
No.
in life that's not fishing.
No.
We don't plan holidays.
No.
We don't do anything.
We planned our wedding around fishing tournaments.
Yeah, we
and then
did.
we canceled
and then
the
we
wedding.
canceled the wedding
Because
to buy
of
a new
fishing
engine.
tournament.
Yeah, yeah, and that's that's been the latest question. When have you decided to get married? Because I'll tell you the story. I blew my engine up, and a new engine was this amount, and a wedding was the exact same amount. And Amber was like, "Well, we could get married, but I won't be able to live with you without a boat engine. So I guess we're gonna buy the boat engine. So
that's a keeper.
That's right. So realistically, you know, we're only not married because we needed a boat engine. So we don't do anything at our house that's not fishing. Even my kid runs around. He's like, Daddy Bassmaster. Daddy Bassmaster. And then if anybody asks him, does your dad catch fish? He'll be like, no. He's like,
so he's the first honest fisherman.
Yeah, that's right. He'll be like, no, my dad doesn't catch nothing. He's like, I catch monsters, big fish.
That's wicked, man.
But that's when you got to start them into it.
Yeah.
You know.
We get them to the stores all the time, and they love going to the stores.
Yeah, Ashton runs a muck in here. He runs up and down the aisle, and he wants fishing rods and tackle. And
you let him loose, he's tearing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
No, but it's cool, man.
And you know, that's the wholesome part of fishing. And you know, you can get all your tournament baits and everything, but even walking up and down the aisles here, I've heard a lot of things secondhand that help me in the tournament trail.
Yeah,
like there's lots of chit chatting in a place like this.
That's the thing, you know. Like, and the staff is, you know, I have the best staff there is, man. Like every staff member that works here lives it, breathes it, does it, and you know that's the way. Like I don't want somebody walking out here with the wrong information. So if you come in here and you want to do whatever species you want, I have a guy to accommodate you, man.
I come in a lot and I'll walk through that door and I'll be, oh, how are you today? And I'll be like, I'll take whatever Chris and Corey bought this week.
I have those guys too.
Yeah.
Hey, I just see Corey leave. What did he buy? You know, that's hilarious, man. I'm like,
Yeah,
you
do
know.
you sign a waiver?
Oh yeah, yeah. Corey's like, you know, I do special orders for those guys, and they're like, so it's pretty cool, man. So yeah.
Wow.
So Justin knows.
Justin knows. Justin's on fish.
Yeah.
No.
The before we get JP on here, let's hear your. This is like a fear fishing tradition to tell us your best fishing story.
Oh, he's got one.
Oh man.
So
it would honestly. I mean,
you can't use the same one. I kind of set you up there.
I would say
your best fishing story, and then we'll bring JP in.
I would Roatan, Honduras, fly fishing the salt flats for bonefish.
Wow,
nice.
I saw those pictures.
Yes.
That was probably the best. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there were some gnarly trips with the boys, but
that's a big trip.
Yeah.
And the Shimano crew going to catch bass, a 10.5 pounder.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Retired.
Yeah.
Just done.
I'm not fishing anymore.
Me and the sales rep, you know, we were in the boat. We were good friends, you know. And as soon as that landed in the bottom of the boat, we both looked at each other. We high-fived. And Azumi was over there filming a show, and we were hooting and hollering so loud that the camera guy had to come over and just go, "Put the shot." You know? And we emptied the cooler. There was 70-something beers in it. We just and didn't care.
That sounds like a fear fishing webcast at home.
Yeah.
For sure.
Webcast over.
Did we catch anything yesterday?
Yeah, exactly.
Shit. Yeah.
Did we do that like webcast last night?
But no, I appreciate what you guys do, man. You guys are, you know.
Thank you so much for having us here.
Yeah,
this is huge. You know, this
it's like
is
the most stressful thing we've ever had to do.
for sure,
same
because it was amazing that we got all this equipment together once at home, and then we took it apart, and now we have it together twice, and we still have to do a third time to
And
set the studio.
Nothing's fallen apart yet.
It's been magical. It's been amazing.
I think you owe a big thanks to Amber.
Amber pulls it all together. The Ike Live crew will be like, yes, Amber.
Oh, yeah.
We knew who was running that company.
Well, but, thank you very much.
Yes,
man.
thank you for having us. This is a huge honor and definitely on the bucket list of my life growing up, you know, down the road in Port Hope. It's amazing how far Port Hope is when you're 5.
Yeah, your bike.
Like, I come here all the time. But I had to like really like clean the house and do some like major stuff around for somebody would drive me here. And then I would get here and they'd be like $20. Anything you want for $20. And then I'd be at the cash register with like $1,800. I need this. If I don't get this, Dad, I can't catch steelhead.
It's a lot like today.
It does sound a lot like
Yeah.
today. I've had some pretty epic. I've spent a lot of money here.
I know.
I don't know.
A ton of money here.
Oh, I know. I know
On
all
different
about
credit
it.
cards, and I've actually
given
at
him
that
a credit
catch
card.
register told people, don't tell Amber.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I don't even think the receipt printer works anymore.
No.
There's not one guy that ever, you want your receipt? No.
No. No.
He
Nope.
gets beat by stuff sometimes.
All right, dude.
All right, let's get JP in here.
Yes.
And
thank you.
anybody who has a question, if there's any questions, be sure to get Amber, and we'll get some questions from our live audience. So, Justin, we hate to kick you out.
I'm good, man. I got to get back to work. My mom's yelling.
Yeah, no doubt. She's been a trooper. She refuses to be on camera.
I know, eh?
Yeah.
Tried to get her in here, too.
She did a lot of work on the set this morning.
She did.
She didn't mess around.
She got us a poinsettia.
She was the boss right away.
Oh,
So, like, she let us know whose store we were at.
The producer actually had to sweep the floor.
Yeah, he did.
that would be her.
Yeah, it was awesome.
All right, dudes. See you guys. Thank you.
All right,
Awesome.
thanks.
Thanks so much, man. That's huge. And you know,
You're up, man.
Marley and I really did spend a lot of time here as kids and talking about this place, and you know, this was the place to be when we were kids.
Oh, big time.
We did. Can you remember when you couldn't even get a pack of hooks without, coming here?
Oh, yeah.
You couldn't get
Unless you wanted, like the gold ones.
the gold. Remember the gold,
Yeah.
the gold hooks from back in the day, and they had like that weird S bend, and a
Terrible.
steelhead could see it coming down the rocks. JP,
What's going on?
not much, my man. This is an honor to have you.
Oh man, pleasure's all mine.
The first time, I will tell you, the first time I ever fished Lake Erie, Marley and I, it was all because we saw you set hook on a spoonfish on the World Fishing Network,
That's
and
true story.
it is a true story, and we started planning from the time we saw you set hook, and we were at home, and we're like, that is the most awesome thing ever.
We're going.
We're going. And then when we got there, we spent the whole day trying to reenact your hook set. That's a mean hook set you got there.
Yeah. I'm known to have a pretty mean hook set. I don't know where it came from, but it's something that it's probably the most pleasurable thing. It's the most pleasurable part of my fishing is setting the hook.
There's not many guys who can like. It is like unbelievable. It's like a superpower.
Well, I wouldn't call it a superpower.
It's even
but
one-handed at times too.
yes.
That's what we saw. Bait caster with
Yeah.
the spoon.
Yeah.
And JP unloads on this fish, and Marley and I, we might have been like 13 or 14, maybe a little older than that. We had boats and cars.
Great, you're making me feel old now.
16, 17.
Yeah,
No.
it was probably like me stealing my dad's car to go to Erie, to be realistic. But we went, and you know, that's when our whole Great Lakes smallie fishing really took off for us. And so you got us hooked on that for
Wow,
sure. And
That's awesome.
we've made hundreds of trips to Erie since then. But let's jump right in. Yesterday we watched the video, and I was talking to you about this before.
Yep.
And you didn't get a bass boat till 26.
Yeah, 26 or 27. Yeah. I had a boat when I got married. I got married pretty young. I was 23.
Yep.
And I got a 12-footer, and I did that for 2 years. Got pretty fed up with it. You know, I had a little 12-footer with a 9.9 and built my own casting deck on
Yeah,
it.
I did
like
too.
the whole it was so bad that when I'd stand up there, I could put my feet on each side of the gunnel. Right?
You want to hear something awesome? I had the same thing, put the trolling motor, bolted it through the aluminum,
Yeah.
and I took a 2x4 to the oar locks and put power downriggers on it for I could salmon fish Lake Ontario.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah, anything. When you're young, you'll do anything to get on the water.
Yeah, so that's how I really started. Because before that, I rented boats probably on every lake in Ontario because I really just wanted to fish. And then I got a 16-footer, and I started doing, what was the real fishing competition back then, the 60 and unders, and that's what got me hooked into the tournaments. I had an Edson. It was like a walleye slash.
Like a
It was a multi-species glass boat. I had
Yep.
to put my own live well in it, but I used that. And then in 05, it was 05. I wanted to fish the, what was the Pro-Ams in Canada.
Yep.
So I wanted to fish against, Mercer and Izumi and all the guys that were fishing back then. So I jumped in and bought my first Triton then, and I was 26 years old.
Wow.
Actually, I should go back on that one of 06. Sorry, that was my first boat. Bass boat was a Nitro, and then I bought my first big bass boat. It was 05. So
That's crazy.
yeah,
We started fishing in a Lund and a Sylvan with a 75 on it, and we won Lake's Top Bass Lake Scugog event with a 17-foot Sylvan with a 75 Honda 4-stroke. And the week later, I was like, I'm buying a 21-footer.
yeah, and you probably run around more now than you did before.
Absolutely, because back then I had no choice but to fish what I could get to.
Yep.
Like there's you even Bewdley to Hastings is about a day and a half in one of those boats. So that's commitment. Like, you got to commit to those fish.
We used to run in the real fishings. I used to run from Bradford to Thora.
Wow.
Okay, in a 50 horse.
Wow.
Okay, so
That's commitment.
Just think of that run.
Yeah.
Just getting out of Cook's Bay was like an hour, and then you had to run from Cook's Bay out to Thora, and then you'd come back with a giant bag of smallmouth. Like, we were weighing like 22, 23 pounds of smallmouth back then. And fishing them, it's amazing because we fished them completely different than we do now. Like, we were back then, fluoro didn't even exist.
Yeah.
Braid was, Fireline was just starting, and we were using 6-pound XL trilene mono. Like, I can't even fathom setting the hook on a smallmouth now with 6-pound mono.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
it's an impossible thought to me.
When we won Scugog in my Sylvan, we had 19 and change, and we actually had a fish in the aerator for the middle live well because we had no room.
Nice.
So we had the big one in there by himself in the bait bucket.
Nice.
Yeah. So fishing's for everybody. Like,
Absolutely.
and it's never too late to start. Like, 26 is to jump in the tournaments, so people can't be afraid to, chase your dreams. And
No, listen, if you want to do it, if you have a passion to do it, you're never too old. That's one thing I love about fishing is the fact that I see, new kids starting out at, 11, 12, 13 years old. I have guys joining our club, and I have fathers bringing their sons. And it really is. It's one of the only sports that is kind of physically demanding, but there's no age limit to it.
That's right.
And you get better as you get older.
absolutely.
Whereas anything you play that's super physical, your body naturally starts to break down in time. You can't compete with the younger kids playing hockey. I played varsity football for a number of years. Your body just can't keep up to the young generation. But in fishing, the older you get, the smarter you get.
And more patient.
More patient you get. You start adding to your bag of tricks, and sooner or later you start putting all the pieces together. So fishing is the one sport that you can do and get better.
And maybe that's why a lot of people are coming from mainstream sports over to bass fishing, is because that competitive drive never goes away.
No.
And basically that's the only difference between pleasure fishing and tournament fishing, is that real drive to compete.
Yep.
Because in Canada, it's basically more of a I beat you, you beat me, rather than a payday.
Yeah, here it's fueling the competition, and it's breaking even is the goal.
Absolutely. It's amazing, like, the amount of work guys put in for $7,000.
If it is 7,000,
Yeah.
it's split in two, really.
Absolutely. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
But, and I can remember, I remember the first time we ever cast a check at Tri-Lakes.
Yep.
We finished 6th place, and we'd never cast a check. I don't think we'd ever finished in the top 80 before this point. So they read our names out in 6th. So we had to go over and have a team meeting behind the boat and be like, okay, just hold it together. We'll celebrate in the truck. And when that truck door stopped, it was like we just won the Super Bowl. I'd never been so excited in my life.
It's the first, though, right? It's that acknowledgement that you guys did something right. It's the first time you're getting money back for your efforts. I mean, it's a big deal to cash a check.
And that's the competitive edge, right? Yeah. And when you do well in a tournament and you look about the guys who you beat, there's a string of guys here who could really do some damage, even in the States. It's just not feasible for everybody to go.
Well, listen, the bottom line is it's not a cheap sport. What I've learned is it's not about, when I did tournaments, and I did a lot, I was doing 40 tournaments a year when I was at my prime. And, I do every club tournament that was available. I did Top Bass, I did Bass Mania, I did Real Fishings back then. But I never went into the mindset that I had to beat Bob Azumi or Dave or anybody else or Jared and Gerard when you're fishing in the Tri-Lakes. You know what I mean? Like, I never focused on those guys.
Mm-hmm.
I focused on 5 fish, because if I got beat at the end of the day, they didn't beat me. The fish did. If you're in the same boat with those guys, then you're fishing against them. If you're allowed to run everywhere, you're not fishing against the guys. You're fishing against the fish.
And if you think going into a tournament that, I have to worry about so-and-so, or you beat yourself.
And I hear it too often. I hear people complain about the Johnsons. Those kids,
every day.
Those kids are hammers.
That's
and
right.
They deserve everything they're getting because they work harder than everybody.
Absolutely.
Sure.
And if you can't beat the Johnsons, it's the fish that are beating you because they've figured them out better than you.
Absolutely. And they're human. And Corey and Chris are very consistent, But there's lots of times they shit the bed, just nobody pays attention to those days.
Yeah.
And everybody has bad days. Kevin Van Dam has bad days.
Everybody does. Some days, every move you make clicks. Every decision you make. It's, I can remember the very first tournament I ever won was because the first 3 moves I made in the day were hunches. And then I was going to run my pattern on Skugog. And I was like, I've never fished that shoreline. I'm going to go there. Told my partner, throw a buzzbait. He bangs a 4.5 out in the flat. I'm going to go to these pads up here. I've never fished them before. Pop a 4.5 out of the pads. So 3 big fish and then run your pattern.
It just happens.
It happens. And then
That's
there's
right.
other days where every move you make is 5 minutes behind.
Yep, absolutely.
And that's the difference between getting a good bag and coming in with 0.
And that's the, a lot of things. Corey and Chris have been trained to do this.
Yeah.
Corey and Chris are thoroughbreds. I remember we fished Skugog this year, and the first 2 fish I hooked in the day were probably a 4 and a 5, and I lost them. Like, gone. Right? 5 years ago, 2 years ago, there would have been a meltdown on the boat, and it would have been over. There would have been a fist fight. There would have been headlocks. We wouldn't have spoke to each other. And getting older and getting more into this, I looked at Marley and I said, at least we know where they are. And we ended up in 8th place.
Yeah.
Pulled it together.
Yeah.
And that's
and you
the
use
training.
You use it as, you got to take those losses as clues. What were they sitting on?
That's right.
There's pieces of a pattern that, whether you lose them or not,
happened.
there's still valuable information in the fact that you hooked them.
And we talk about this a lot about pre-fishing. And even there's more value in losing tournaments and not giving up than going to win your first 5, because you'll never learn anything. You'll never learn about those tough moments in tournament fishing and putting your head down and we can
absolutely.
do this. And, you're a technical fisherman. I'm the least technical swabby fisherman. Marley's a technical guy. I'm the untechnical guy. Do you think is that like a way to calm yourself while you're out there on the water, and it gives you something to think about?
No, I think with anything I've ever done, I like to analyze and figure out. I'm the guy, I consider myself to be pretty lazy in reality, because I always look for the easiest way to do stuff, the most efficient way to. And I shouldn't say lazy, because I just don't like wasting time.
Yep.
So if I can figure out how to throw a crankbait further and get it to dive deeper and stress my body less, or, I could figure out a way to spool line faster that's different, or, the new thing, the FG knot. You've heard of the FG knot. It's a pain in the ass to tie. I figured out a way to do it easier.
No way.
Oh, yeah, and I'm going to be doing a video on it. Like, you know why? Because I didn't like having to hold a piece of line in my mouth with my rod leaned the other way and then do these twists around this line. It didn't make sense to me. It didn't make sense to me. So that's where I think, for me, as an angler, that's why I enjoy it. I enjoy figuring out ways to make things more efficient.
When guys are out picking a combo, and because, this should be the last question anybody ever asks me, I just buy what,
All 7-foot medium heavies.
That's right. Yeah. That's totally me right there. Or I come in here to Gagnon's and I'm like, Justin, what do I need?
Yeah.
And then he gives me, and I'm like, okay, this will do. If guys are picking out rods, what should they be looking for?
That's a loaded question and a half, because there's so many variables that get put together when you're putting together your combos. So you got to start with, what kind of line are you using? Because if you're using mono, or you're using fluoro, or you're using braid for the same technique, in the same species, in the same water, the rods need to be different because of the stretch factor of the lines.
Absolutely.
So it's really, I get guys all the time, is like, what rod and reel do I need to fish for bass? And I'm like, well, that's like asking me, like, how many
what
clouds
iron?
are there in the sky? Like, I need detail. So for me, what I find is, if I get a lot of questions about, if you had to pick one rod for spinning, one spinning setup and one bait casting setup, what would it be for Ontario? And for me, I'd say without a doubt, like a 7 to 7'2" spinning rod, medium power, 2,500 to 3,000 size reel, 10-pound braid, fluorocarbon leader. You could do just about everything with that.
Absolutely.
From drop shotting to throwing a jerk bait, to tubes, to rip jigging for walleye, to just about everything.
Absolutely.
And then on the bait caster side, I would say like I like 7'5", I'm 6 foot tall. So I'd run a 7.5 medium heavy bait casting fast action. I'd spool it with a high gear ratio reel, like a 7-to-1, and I'd probably put 65 or 50-pound braid on it. And if you're, want to play lighter, slower moving stuff, you can always add a fluorocarbon leader.
And that's the big thing is, I'm a tall guy. I'm 6'4". I like a longer rod.
Yep.
So they have to take that into comparison too.
Yes.
If you're 5'8", you don't want a 6'9" rod for jerk baiting.
No. Not if you're going to work, you got to understand which techniques involve the downward motion, which ones are to the side,
Yep.
which ones are, all your bottom contact. Your rod's going to be, from the 9 to 11 o'clock position,
Yep.
right, when you're fishing your bait. So that's the times you can get away with that longer rod.
Yep.
And that's the times you want to get away with
Absolutely.
it because it's twofold. One, you're going to get way better hook sets because it's going to pick up that much more line when you swing.
Yep.
Right?
Absolutely.
Two,
Yep.
you're going to have more control over the fish. It's a bigger stick.
That's right.
So, there's little things that when you put stuff together, and for me, I have 6 different crankbait rods that I fish, and they're all for specific crankbaits.
Yeah. See, that's great. That would
Yeah.
blow my mind all
Like
day.
I have 3 7-Elevens. I have 3 7-Elevens. I have 2 7-3s. I got a shorty that I use around docks for square bills.
Yeah. See,
It's just
my mind would be blown all day. I would throw a crankbait and I'd be like, nope, this is not it. And then I'd be like, next rod. No, I'm not feeling this one today either. And it works for everybody. And the more anglers I talk to, everybody kind of has their niche and what really works for them. And that's where the confidence in fishing comes from. A lot of the game is whatever you have confidence in.
Oh, absolutely. Listen, you best thing I ever told anybody in terms of getting better at something was when I first started fishing seriously and renting boats. I never caught a fish on a jig, for an example, and I think I was like 18 or 19 years old, and I said, you know what I'm going to do this summer? I'm going to do nothing but throw a jig.
Mm-hmm.
And literally, I threw a jig every single day from season opener to season close, in rain, in sun, in wind, in lily pads, in 18 feet of water, and 8 inches of water. I threw a jig, and I learned how to catch them all the way through. And I think if you do that and you pick a lure every year, and every year you're out there, you put that honest time, because topwaters are great when they're biting them.
Yeah, for sure.
But how do you know when they're biting a topwater? There's no formula.
No,
You got to throw it.
it's right here.
So every day you got to
That
say,
feeling.
you know what, for an hour, I'm going to throw this topwater. Then I'll go back to doing what I'm doing. And then, conditions changed. I'm going to grab that topwater again. I'm going to throw it for another hour and learn how to catch them and start putting those pieces together.
And we did the same thing for the jig. And I saw it actually on Dave's show, and Dave said the exact same thing. There's 100 ways to catch a fish on a jig.
Yep.
You can fish that thing like a spinnerbait and catch fish. And you're exactly right. Figuring out fishing is a mathematical equation, and
It is.
it's the mathematicians who figure out the sky and the water temperature and the wind
Yeah.
who put it all together win.
It's also the memory factor. You
Yes.
have to recognize and notice when things happen. One of the best I've ever fished with that does that is Doug Brownridge.
Mm-hmm.
Doug is a monster. And he's a monster not because he's technically the best fisherman I've ever been in the boat with. He's a great fisherman technically, but he's the smartest fisherman I've been in a boat with. He'll pull up to a point. He knows where the wind's going. He'll make 3 flips at an entire point covered in cover. I would work the whole thing.
Yeah, me
Doug
too.
knows the exact 3 spots because of the current and the wind and the sun where the 3 prime spots for the biggest fish to sit, and that's what he fishes.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And that's time on the water.
That's exactly it. You can't read that.
No, that's time on the water, and really dialing in what you need to know about largemouth. And even, I guess I'm 33 now, and I started fishing seriously when I was 21. So I can't believe what I missed as a younger person to what I pick up on now. And
That's the
it's
worst part of the
time. Pardon?
That's the worst part of the whole thing. If I can go back.
Yeah, but hold on a second. We'd all say that. If we can go back to high school, you'd have a lot more girlfriends too, right? I mean, this is the way
That
life
is true.
works.
Yeah, that is true. But it's that confidence in even in Brownridge, knowing that I only have to do this, and the rest of the time I'm just wasting. And tournament fishing is all about time.
Well, he's smart because he fishes the same way KVD would.
Mhm.
It's high percentage, fast moving. You hit enough of those spots, you only need 5.
That's right.
Right? You hit enough prime spots in a day where the big fish live. Why waste your time push-poling into the back of a slot mat that's, that maybe there's one in there and you're going to sacrifice half your day to get there?
And Swindle talks about that. And I watched an amazing interview with Swindle, and he says, if that fish is there and he's not going to bite what I have, he's too smart for me to catch. There's 400 dumb ones in the lake. Let's go get those.
Yep. Absolutely.
Let's get into your TV show. I've really enjoyed the new TV show.
Thank you.
It is absolutely, crossing, different kind of fishing, but showing how it's all fishing's the same. It
is.
starts a
The
basic
fundamentals
principle.
are identical. A fish is a fish is a fish.
Where did they come up for this idea?
It was funny. The whole idea for the show, one of my very good friends who's the creative director at WFN, came up to me and said, I'm a big heavy metal, hard rock kind of guy, and there was a really cool documentary series called The History of New Metal, or The History of Metal, and it was done by the Banger Brothers, and they had this chart, because the guy studied genealogy in school, so he built this family tree of metal and where it started, like who was the first band and who spawned from this band, and I was looking at him like, oh man, that'd be like the coolest thing to do for fishing. So I built this family tree of fishing where I started with a fish and split it to saltwater and freshwater and split it again to structures and lakes and rivers, and by the time I was done, I ended up with 512 branches across the bottom of the tree. So then I started saying, okay, let me take a good look at this and let me see what I've done in my life, because I considered myself to be like a very serious fisherman, and I started going like a little highlighter, like I've done this and I've caught one this way, and I stood back and I'm like, oh my God, I've done nothing. Yeah, I have actually done nothing in this world of fishing, and I'm like, I need to get out there and check this out. So that was how Breaking Boundaries was formed.
And I really enjoy watching this show, and it you know, we all know you as a bass fisherman, but it kind of shows you how it's all the same, but it's really different. And my first question about the show is, what is the one type of fishing you did on your on the new show that was the most out of place for you?
Fly fishing. Fly fishing. So quick I can answer that. And it's not that I don't understand the mechanics, because I do, and I actually have fly rods at home, and I can lay a line out there. It's the efficiency I hate.
Yeah.
Fly fishing is not efficient. It's aggravating as hell. You know, when you've got, especially in saltwater where the fish are always moving, your target's never stationary like it is here in freshwater a lot of the times. It's all of a sudden, it's 50 feet, 10 o'clock moving to 11, there's a bonefish, and if you lay your line on top of him too far, he's gone. And you're, you know, and you got a crosswind, and I'm like, why would anybody ever want to do this? So I actually, it's funny, the fly fishing guys will kill me for this one, but when I do seminars, I talk about fly fishing, and I say, you know, fishing is fishing, and if you can catch fish, you can catch fish. Like, there's no doubt. You have it in you to catch fish, and if you can't catch fish, you usually take up fly fishing. Because fly fishing is, well, fly fishing technically is an excuse as to why.
Dude.
Yeah, that's I know. It's all right. Fly fishing, I find for a lot of them, it's an excuse not to catch. They have a reason why they're not catching. I'm not catching them because of fly. It's harder to catch them. Then why are you doing it? I kind of go fishing to catch fish, right? So that's they're all going to murder me for that one, but whatever.
And I love fly fishing.
It's peaceful, right?
Go away.
Yeah.
Is it because it's peaceful?
It's more because I catch more fish than Ian does fly fishing.
That's about it. I'm pretty bad at fly fishing. It is like a fish out of water to watch me try to do this.
Yeah.
You cannot flip a fly rod.
Yeah, no.
And that's true. I never thought about that, but if you watch your episode with Nick Pungent, where he's trying to muskie, he's really working.
You know, he labored, and I'm like, yeah, you okay back there? And I'm like bombing spinner baits and everything.
And he's putting everything he's got into getting that fly out there, let alone strip.
I got him to put the fly rod down.
You sure did. And
it was like first cast, first fish too. Right after that, right?
Yeah. He started catching right away.
That's a really exciting. It brings everybody together and shows that fishing's for everybody, and that's the main thing here, is that fishing is for everyone.
I honestly have not felt out of place anywhere, including like whether it's big game offshore, or I'm fishing for panfish on Simcoe, or I'm in the flats fishing for redfish and tarpon. The skills you learn, and that's the one thing. I think bass anglers have a wicked advantage because we fish so many different techniques.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a species where, like, if you're a trolling walleye guy, all you know how to do is let line out and drag it.
Yep.
No, we know how to cast. We know how to work deep to shallow. We understand reaction baits, bottom contact baits. So being a bass angler is really a good stepping stone to try other types of fishing. So for me, I've never really... Like, if they said to me, tarpon 10 o'clock, and I got a spinning rod in my hand, I'm going to put it between his eyes.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? So it's good that way.
I did see when you took poor Joe Erie fishing. He was a little out of his element there.
Yeah. Well, listen, saltwater fish, when they hit, you know it.
Yeah.
Smallmouth on Erie, when they're in 2 feet of water, they'll hit 10 times and you never saw it happening.
What have you taken from, all your travels, not just on your show, but all your travels over the year? Because when I talked to you before, you've got a huge, season coming up.
Yeah.
What is the exciting part, your favorite part of traveling while you fish? And aside from the fishing part, what are you getting out there?
You know what? I think it's the people I'm meeting, because I've never met a fisherman that I can't get along with instantly, and we're all like that. I think if anybody talks to a fisherman, you could be in an airport and I'm wearing Shimano on my jacket, and someone will come up to me and be like, "Oh, you fish," and we'll instantly have a conversation that is like we've been buddies for years. And I think that's the one thing from all my travels I can say is that I've got a huge list of new friends that I've met all over the country, even in Guatemala.
Yeah.
And we share that your language could be off, and it does not matter when you're fishing because you understand each other. You can talk the language.
Do they understand the 7-foot medium action rod sail fishing kind of thing? Is that
Do they understand that part of it? No, that's when they all think I'm actually mental.
I mean, I seen that video last night. I watched it like 5 times.
That was that little 6.6 you mean? The little,
Yeah.
That was a Stratic 3000 with 10-pound Power Pro.
It was like inches away from spooling you.
I tried breaking it too, and I couldn't break that rod. That's why I kind of laugh every time because I hear people complain about rods. They'll buy a rod and they'll be like, "It broke." What do you mean it broke?
Yeah.
Rods don't break. You
Just
did
slammed it in
something
your
to
door.
it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Ian.
Yeah,
Ian.
I'm hard on rods. Really hard on rods. I've been back here a lot of times to be like, Justin, can you please send this back? Hey, you know, I watched that fish too. And when I was a kid, I used to cast off the pier in Port Hope for Chinooks. And you only have so much line. And the one thing I learned, and maybe somebody out there can use this, is that when you start getting down on your spool, if you just open that bail and let him calm down, he'll stop.
They'll stop running. Yeah, tuna are notorious for that.
Really?
Blackfin, not bluefin. They don't stop for anything. But a blackfin tuna, if it starts getting digging and it's got that momentum, they're kind of like juggernaut. They just keep running through stuff. So you can just back the drag off a bit, let them run, and they'll calm right down, and
That's
then lay the
crazy.
rocks, get them coming your way.
That's nuts. It's the small little tips about fishing that go such a big way. And I thought the guy was crazy. Some old guy told me, he's like, just open your bail. And I was like, what, you drinking?
They're like a dog pulling on a leash,
and
right?
as soon as I opened that bail, that fish stopped dead in his tracks. He might have taken 20 yards out.
Yeah.
And then I kept it like tight on him. And I was like,
Well, because he's trying to come back to the
that's
river.
right. He's trying to figure it back out. And then as soon as I got some line on, I was like, all right, I got you. Sneaky.
Exactly.
Marley or Rich, you got any questions?
I actually have a question. You've been to so many different resorts around the world, really. Where would you suggest people to go on their honeymoon? I mean, I'm looking for a resort, and I don't care what I'm fishing for. Is tarpon, redfish,
Are you
sailfish.
looking for all-inclusive in there?
Oh, you know it.
Okay. So that's where things really start to get a little tougher, right? Because most all-inclusive resorts aren't geared for the fishermen. I actually, when I got married, we went to Barbados, and the reason I went to it was the Almond Beach Club we went to, and the reason I went there is because it included reef fishing every day as part of their water activities. So then I got to know the locals, and then I started going fishing with the local guys.
Oh yeah.
So I mean that
So
was
you gotta have like 2 weeks so you can spend time with some locals. And
the problem with saltwater is anywhere you're going to go is that it's hugely expensive gas wise.
yeah, for sure.
An average day of if you're going to go offshore and trolling, you could do $400 or $500 in fuel, pretty easily.
Yeah.
Like, it's that crazy. So for me, it was I went to Barbados. Like I said, the Almond Beach Club. I searched all of the places we could possibly go, and that one had reef fishing included. So that kind of sealed the deal. I
Nice. actually
actually caught my first sailfish there. Caught an 80 and a 90 pounder on a Compre flipping stick with an Abu 5500 with 15-pound mono.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
How do you
awesome.
remember all of that?
This is
Technical.
The guy remembers like
That's
ridiculous
technical.
numbers.
I can't remember your name. I apologize, but I will tell you the gear ratio and bearings in a reel. And yeah, I
The
remember.
Ike Live show has blown her head up so much that nobody needs to remember her name.
Oh, zip it.
They even chanted her name on Ike Live the other night.
Nice.
all I get
It's
is Fizz
disgusting.
Rich.
Fizz Rich. Fizz Rich right off the show.
I've
They
been
want you off the
fizzed.
show,
I'm over
too.
here, man.
I never got fizzed.
No, but they wanted you out of the screen, and they
Yeah. They want you to have your own personal
go.
screen. Yeah. Well, JP, I appreciate you so much coming
No
to do
problem,
this.
man.
This has been absolutely amazing. Before we let you go, though,
Yep.
the Fear Fishing webcast deal is before every guest leaves, he's got to tell us his best fishing story.
Ooh.
Scott Martin so far has the best one because there was a crocodile like Okeechobee and he had to jump in the water.
My best one's probably the one I just alluded to, and that was my honeymoon. So the whole, I'll give you it from the start. I was going reef fishing every day, so I got to know all the guys from the water sports.
Yep.
And one of them said to me, "Hey, I have a buddy who commercial fishes. do you want to go fishing with him? I'm like, hell yeah.
Yeah.
He's like, be on the beach at 3 o'clock, and he'll pick you up in his boat. So I walked down to the beach. I had my flipping stick and a little Plano with hooks and weights, and that's it.
Yeah.
And I see this guy coming down the beach, and he's standing on the front of his wooden boat throwing a cast net.
Yep.
So in he comes, pulls the boat up to the shore. It's a handmade boat with a sailfish brutally painted on the front of it.
Wow.
And it had a 15-horse Nissan on the back. And he's like, get in. And I'm like, all right. Get in, and there's 8 inches of water in the bottom of the boat. And there's pilchards swimming around.
Oh, wow.
So that's his live well. So as we start driving, I get and sit on the front of it, and we start driving out. And I'm thinking, like, this guy could easily just kill me and leave me there. But anyways, we're heading out. He pulls a cork from the floor and lets the water drain out. And then when we stop, he lets it fill back up to put fresh water in the boat.
Wow.
Puts the cork back in. So we go out there, and we tie off 2 miles offshore. So I could see our resort in the background. We tie off. And he's like, what are you going to do with that rod? I'm like, you don't worry about it. Just give me a bait, and I'll deal with whatever happens. So we tie off to a buoy, and we set out. He has his hand lines out, and I've got my rod out. So clicker on, 15-pound mono, pilchard swimming on the surface, and all of a sudden my thing just starts screaming. And I mean, like, it's going, and I'm watching it. He's like, wait. I lock it, and it's a sailfish.
Wow.
And it's like a 90-pound sail, and it jumps and just starts spooling me. And I'm standing there in a 12-footer 2 miles offshore watching the line go. I'm like, dude, let go of the anchor. And he lets go of the anchor. So I lock the drag up, and it drags this boat for 45 minutes
Wow.
around the ocean. And this is the worst part of it. Like, we get the thing in, and I fight it to the boat, and it gets there. And he's like, I'm like, what do we do now? And he's like, okay. He goes, I'm going to grab the nose, you grab the tail. And it's the length of the boat.
Wow.
So he grabs the nose, I grab the tail. He flips it in the boat, reaches in, grabs its gills, rips them out,
Oh.
Jesus.
rips them out,
Yeah.
takes the front seat, which is like a foam pad, lifts it up, puts the head under there, puts the seat back down, and pats it. And he goes, go ahead, sit back down. we went right back to the buoy, and I hooked another one and landed it.
Wow.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That is, I can't even imagine. And
I have a picture on the beach with 2 sailfish.
you'll have to send me that
Yeah.
on Facebook.
No gills.
That's yeah.
No gills.
The old school.
Well,
yeah.
that's food for
Yeah,
them,
yeah,
right?
absolutely.
So-
And you know, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
That's
Does
a
that
good
make you
story,
wanna
man. No, I'll take a boat.
We're trying to decide. I want to go away and run away. Go
I'm
somewhere south.
petrified
Let's
of
go.
flying.
Are you?
I don't know why.
Then go to
though.
Florida. You can't ask for better saltwater fishing than Florida.
There we go.
Everything. The
We may
Keys.
be onto something. They have big
Isla-
bass there too.
Isla Mirada. You want a shot at everything? Inshore, offshore, pelagic species,
Nice.
tarpon, redfish, snook, trout, like
Wow.
everything.
We'll have to look into that, sweetheart.
Yeah.
We
Maybe
may
it
have
could be like a
your
double
book.
thing.
What, you
There
want
you
to get
go.
married too, Rich?
Well,
We're not
I'm
into
kind
that
of
poly
in that
thing.
stage, yeah.
Well, JP, I want to thank you so much for doing this, my man.
No
It's
problem,
been
dude.
It's been a huge pleasure. I've been watching you for a long time, man, and this has been awesome.
That's great. I love what you guys are doing, man. It's
Well,
good. Keep
I
it up.
really appreciate that. Adam, we're going to take ourselves about a 10-minute break, and then we'll be back with Mr. Dave Mercer. All right, here we are. We got to fix that camera. Or you got to slide back in there a bit, Dave. Yeah.
Where do you want me to go?
Oh, that got
this
that
direction.
got unprofessional fast.
Someone's walked by and hit it.
Whoa.
I'm nervous now. I'm not used to seeing myself on the camera.
That's tough, eh?
I'm so tired. I need to drink coffee. I'm exhausted.
Mr. Dave Mercer, Mr. Facts of Fishing.
Sure.
He's like a
Let
little
me tell
kid
you.
right
Okay,
now.
let's jump right into here, and I'll tell you the whole story.
Okay.
We're at my grandmother's house on Lake Simcoe in Keswick,
Okay. What's your grandmother's name?
Virginia.
Virginia. Okay. Is she?
No, she's passed on.
Oh.
Which she'll
I
be.
won't say hi to her.
Nope, she'll be looking down. She'll be
Okay.
she. This was one of her shining moments. So when I was
Okay.
a kid, I was a bit of a troublemaker. I was a little hyper. My younger brother's 3 years younger than me.
The
so
best coffee ever, just so you know.
Yeah.
I don't even drink coffee. But this is
only the best at FearFishing.
I can tell.
My brother and I are wrestling in our living room, and it's getting pretty heated. And it's a little lopsided because I'm older and bigger. And all of a sudden on the
How old are you at that time?
When did Facts of Fishing start?
God.
What? It
Beating him.
depends if you're
The original,
the half-hour show or the tips.
the tips.
Oh, you were like a little snot-nosed
Yeah,
kid.
yeah.
Well, a long time ago.
Yeah. So I might have been like 10.
Okay.
So Sean would have been 7, and it's a heated battle, and I've been picking on him, and all of a sudden out of nowhere, I hear your show come on for the first time, and I pop my head up to look because I'm hardcore. We're in Lake Simcoe to do the perch thing, and
Okay.
I hear you, and I look up, and I'm like, oh my God, and it's like, oh, and my brother cracks me right in the face out of nowhere. The best punch he ever got in our whole lives, right there during the first time I saw Facts of Fishing.
It changed your life.
Yeah, well, it changed his. He got a little braver after that.
That's ironic because when I told my mom I wanted to do Facts of Fishing and fish for a living, she punched me in the mouth too. So pretty ironic.
Well, let's get this. Let's start right at the beginning. You actually had a job here.
I did. This is where I started. Not here in the Wayne's World set, but in the original store or the Simcoe Street store. I started. If it wasn't for Gagnon Sports, I may not have ever been in the fishing industry.
Really?
I'd be an unemployed bum, probably a stand-up comic in most senior citizen homes across the country. But I came here when I was 13 years old and talked to Roger and Natalie and basically just said, hey, I want to fish for a living. At that time I knew I wanted to fish for a living and figured it was a good way for me to get into the industry. And they happened to be having a line spooling clinic that weekend. So and if you've ever worked a line spooling clinic, I don't know if you have, but it's no fun at all.
No, it's not. I've actually.
You spool up reels for hours, and I had no idea how to do it. They didn't care. They just put me there, and I messed up a lot of reels. And if it's anybody here, I'm sorry. But then after that, the job got a lot worse because basically after that, I just became Justin's babysitter, and you saw how that worked out. So
Look at him now.
And the fishing is something that is really, when you want to be something in fishing, it starts young. I have a letter at home to my mother from my grade 12 guidance counselor explaining that winning the Bassmaster Classic is not a career choice. I do.
None of my teachers took the time to write the letter, but they did tell me that a lot.
Yeah.
growing up.
I've got. It says right in there that your son may be delusional. I've never even heard of the Bassmaster Classic, and this is definitely not a career choice. Could you talk to your son? And I was like, Mom, this is happening. You don't understand. And she was
So
like,
you
all right.
really are going to win the Bassmaster
At
Classic?
some point, it's in the, I got a lot of tough anglers to go against, but I'm going to make it there. I feel like
Let's put a
gonna
date.
be a lake.
Let's throw it out there. I mean, I'm a big MMA fan. Obviously, Conor McGregor
That was amazing.
destroyed everybody. We got any Conor McGregor fans in the house?
None
None of them.
Oh, come on. I love Connor.
None of them. Jose Aldo, it was a lucky punch. Well, put your chin away, sucker.
I love Conor McGregor.
You don't even
That's
know
what I'm
how.
going to watch before I fish from now on.
But
We watched
he
all those
envisioned
videos.
what he was going to do last
I'm
night.
33 years old.
Give a date. Commit to it.
By 40. That's I'm
So in the
throwing it
next
7 years.
Good God, there's an animal here. Well, there he is.
He's
Oh,
just doing his patrol.
all right. He does not believe that you're
Well,
winning
let's
in
do-
the next 7 years. By the looks of things.
That's 43, straight up 10.
Okay,
Because
10
in
years.
10 years. I'm. That's the goal, to make it to there, to and not even win. If I could just fish in one, that'd be huge.
No, you said win.
You shut up.
Hey, if he makes it there, I'm good. I'm good. I mean, the only way I make it there is on a mic. I mean, so it's
one
less than 500 people have done that.
Absolutely.
In the history of fishing, so it's a pretty incredible goal.
We had Ike on our show, and
Name dropper.
I'm such a fishing geek. The first thing I said to him was, "You're the first person I've ever talked to who's won a Bassmaster Classic. This is legendary in my life because there's so few. Like Van Dam's racked up a couple years of them.
Yeah.
You know, there's not a whole. There couldn't be 30 guys.
No, you've got Van Dam who's got 4. You got Clun who's got 4. Davey High. You've got several. George Cochran's got 2. Hank Parker's got 2. Bobby Murray's got 2.
Yeah.
So outside of that, I mean, it's individual. So it's probably right around 30 people that have won
that's
tournament,
crazy.
which is what makes it so tough to win.
Absolutely.
It's actually the easiest. If you look at all the Bassmaster events throughout the year, statistically, it's the easiest tournament to win because it's 3 days. But because of all the pressure and everything that happens around the Classic and the fact that it comes so rarely, it's once a year, that's what makes it so tough to win.
And we watched a video yesterday of Justin Lucas, who's already pre-fishing.
Yeah, a lot of guys are down there.
This is not like the week before or 2 weeks before. This is, it's 3 months to the Classic. 3 months, 2 months.
Yeah, well, the Classic is the first week in March, but the reason that they're there now is because January 1st, the lake is shut off, so none of those guys can go to the lake after January 1st. So they'll go pre-scout, but it's interesting because there's different theories. You take a guy like Kevin Van Dam, not going,
really,
not pre-practicing. He will practice the 3 days they get before it, but he will not pre-practice because he just doesn't like it. And it's worked out pretty good for his career.
Yeah, not bad, eh?
He just doesn't want to put those things in his head,
Yeah, and that's fishing. Fishing is a mental game. Whoever controls the mental game, which Kevin's awesome at it. And there's a YouTube video where they're all talking about Kevin's mental game, and it's far superior than the rest of them. And, fishing's mental. I've been on the lake where I beat myself up to catch no fish. You lose a fish, and it's like the end of the world.
And that's the weird thing about tournament fishing, though. And it's funny because I've removed myself from tournament fishing for the last, 5 years. I haven't competed in any tournaments, and I look at it so different now. And at some point in my life, I may go back and seriously fish tournaments again. But there's part of me that looks at all the stuff that I did wrong when I competed in tournaments, and it was a lot. Weekly basis, I did a lot of dumb stuff. But the dumbest thing I did was think about it like other sports. I mean, think about it. I'd get angry. If you lose a fish, you get angry and you want to, make it up. Or you in the morning, I remember you're trying to get pumped up or whatever.
Yep.
But really, I mean, if the best of the best, you watch Kevin Van Dam, you watch Aaron Martins. I mean, Ike Anelli is actually the exception to the rule.
Yep.
In the way that he's very emotional, but the best of the best, very few of them are emotional like that. I mean, they're very calm, and you think about it. I mean, I think most people go in tournaments and that clock starts ticking the moment they leave the dock, and they never stop listening to that ticking, which is the worst thing in the world, if you ask me, because when I've seen guys like Kevin and stuff and had that front row seat over the last 5 years working for Bass, it's amazing how little they react to any negative. I mean, if something negative happens, they just move on, because you really have to think about it. Like, think of how many times in your life it's been a Friday afternoon, you got off work early, and you went fishing for 3-4 hours and totally caved their skulls.
Yep.
But we don't. If you were only given 3 hours at a tournament, right away you'd
different
go out
story. Twilight event.
Oh yeah.
Twilight event's scary. And we talked to Brandon Polnick, and his run, like what we're talking about though is like he told us he ran like 102 miles down the St. Lawrence. He had 2 hours to fish. Like, I don't know if I could do that. Like that's the confidence going into that, and he's a young guy too. Like, he's ahead of the game on the mental side. But I don't think people understand that when you run that far, you're cutting your fishing time down.
Brandon is a rarity in the sport.
He is.
Honestly, and I say this all the time. And Brandon, I mean, he's one of my best friends on earth. He's my little brother, we talk a lot. But Brandon is a rarity because when you see rookies come along, and whether it's Brandon Polnick or Jonathan Van Dam when he was a rookie, it doesn't matter. Justin Lucas, for the most part, most rookies are very reserved in
Yes.
the way that they don't take big risks. I mean, they try to make the classic. They don't try to win the tournament, so to speak. And then after they've been around for a few years, they start contending. But Brandon Palnick from day one really has been that kid who doesn't care. He wants to win tournaments.
Mhm.
And it's a rarity in our sport, and he's got an incredible future ahead of him.
Absolutely, and he's hardworking. It's unbelievable. Like I talk to Brandon from time to time, and every time you talk to him, he's working.
Mm-hmm.
He's working on hunting or fishing, or he's working. He's a maniac.
That's the one thing I think people don't realize about fishing, to be honest, about competitive fishing. Those guys work harder than people all the time. I'll get emails and Twitter and stuff, and people say, "Hey, do you ever want to fish the Elite Series?" And I'm like, "No, never, never." Because once it's done, I get in my incredible mid-size upgrade rental car, and I drive to whatever airport, and I fly home. Those guys, they literally are on their way to the next event. There's no let
Brandon
off time.
told us he was gone for 10 minutes at a time.
Yeah.
Like when he leaves
and
his
then
house,
come
and
back for like a week.
just to fly
and be
back,
gone.
and that I think that's the stuff that people don't see. Like even since fear fishing's got really busy, I fish way less, just because I'm so busy doing this stuff and business stuff, and I can't imagine throwing the Elite Series right now into my life and being able to compete at that level. It's really amazing what they put into it.
It's incredible, and they hostage so much. Nobody gives them credit for what they hostage, and what I mean by that is, in another sport, it's the one thing that really drives me crazy about the sport of fishing. Let's take baseball and fishing. I mean, if you're a good baseball player and you get signed, and let's say you're making league minimum, you're still making way more money than anybody you went to school with.
Yep.
So life has worked out pretty good. And you have to pitch against somebody that may be making $30 million a year, but money still is not a concern for you. I mean, you'd like to be that $30 million guy, but it's not a concern. In fishing, you've got, a guy like Kevin who has won so much. And he's got to compete against these guys that are paying $5,000 a tournament, and it's almost uneven in that way because, obviously for guys like Kevin and Aaron and stuff, money matters, but it doesn't matter as much as a guy who doesn't have gas money to go to the next event.
Absolutely.
So it's an uneven playing field in that way.
Let's get back to the facts of fishing. Let's take it back, way back. How did you come up with the idea? Where did this spawn from?
I hated work. I mean, I really tried working, and it didn't take. No, I mean, I always wanted to fish for a living. I mean, I knew when I worked at Gagnon's, when, I was 13 years old, I knew one day I wanted to fish for a living. I didn't honestly, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, I knew one day I'd have a TV show and I'd do this and that. I never, ever thought about it like that, but I just knew this is what I wanted to do. And I was the same as every kid that told their teachers and parents that they wanted to fish for a living. I got laughed out of the room. You're a fool. My mother, literally, she passed away a number of years ago, but my mother was your traditional Irish mother. Me and my mother were best friends, but my mother just wanted, like all parents, she just wanted us to be safe. He wanted you to be safe. My mother used to bring home clippings from the newspaper back before the Google machine and Monster and areas where you get your jobs now online. You used to get jobs through the paper. So she'd bring clippings from the paper where the local gas station is hiring and stuff like that. And she'd put them on the fridge telling me to go take that and stop fishing just because at least my son's going to be guaranteed to make, $10,000 a year or something at the gas station. So I'm glad I never took one of those jobs. But, I always wanted to fish. And I knew early on in tournaments, I think when I was like 20, I had already known that, hey, this isn't the life for me. I like tournaments. I like that environment. I don't want to be Kevin Van Dam. I don't want to live that life. I mean, I have 2 young kids, and the amount of time you have to spend away is incredible. And I spend a lot of time away, but it's nothing like what those guys do. So even at that point, I knew, hey, I still want to fish for a living. And I kind of just stick-handled my way through life, really. I mean, I entered a tournament when I was 13 years old, won $400, figured I was loaded. All the way through school, that's all I did. My summer job was fishing tournaments, and it was okay. And then school ended, and I was like, wow, getting to be an adult really sucks.
Yeah.
Which is the weirdest thing in life, because there's kids here watching today, and I'm going to tell you this. Your whole life you want to be an adult, and then when you're a kid, you're like, damn, I wish I was a kid again.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody wants to be adults. There's really no such thing as adults. I'm just going to let you know I figured that out now. Because when I was a kid, I used to look at my dad and other adults and be like, wow, yeah, they're adults. They're smart. And now that I'm an adult, I realize we're just kids that act like adults in front of our kids, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. That's so true.
You're not, that your life is still the same. But so basically, I knew I wanted to fish for a living. I knew that tournaments weren't going to be what I wanted to do 100%. And the two things I've always loved in life is fishing and kind of entertaining and public speaking. I mean, I won the speech contest in my grade school every year without ever practicing. And actually found out a few years ago, I went to grade school with my wife.
Yeah.
Hated her guts. Made fun of her. Made fun of her all the time. Called her things like walking encyclopedia, which, again, as an adult, compliment. As a child, an insult, obviously. But she was smart, so I made fun of her. And I found out a few years ago that I guess in grade 5 or grade 6, she was the finalist and in the speech contest against me. And I made it up as I went along and beat her, and she practiced for months. But anyways, so I knew I wanted to do something in fishing, and I literally, one day just said, hey, maybe I should try do something on TV. And I approached a station called the New VR, and they were actually new at that time.
Yeah, like brand new.
Yeah.
It just started.
Yeah, it was the New VR for another 10 years after.
Yeah.
But it wasn't new. So I went to the New VR and literally called them for 6 months. They never returned my call. But I kept calling the station director, Bill Patrick, and I think he literally just had me in because he was like, well, I mean, I'm going to have this kid in. He'll stop calling. And I went in and I told him about my idea because at the time there was no, I mean, now you watch TV, there's tips all the time on everything.
Yep.
There wasn't, wasn't happening. So I pitched him this idea. They were at the gateway of cottage country. So I said, I'm going to do these 1-minute fishing tips. And he said, well, do you have any experience in TV? Did you go to school for TV? And I was on it once. I mean, I got interviewed. And he said, really? And he said, okay, where's your boat? I said, it's in Port Perry. So he sent me home. I went and got my boat, which was a total disaster. I picked it up in my brown Nissan Pathfinder that I was driving at the time, which my friends nicknamed Caramel Corn for a couple reasons, because it was brown, kind of the color of caramel corn. And after you drove for 1 hour, this is true, there was holes in the floorboards. And after you drove for 1 hour, the carpet would catch on fire.
Wow.
And it, once again, proven I was an idiot as a kid. If I had been smart, I would have just, every once in a while it would catch fire. I'd have to pull over and I'd pour water on it. If I was smart, I would have just let it burn and get a new truck. But I wasn't smart. So I took caramel corn, which was a tough trip, because from Barrie to Port Perry, we're talking 3 hours driving time return. I just stopped several times to dump water on the carpet. I show up to the station. I still remember walking in there like such an idiot. I walked in there and I said, hey, to the reception, I'm here for my screen test. I didn't even know what it was. And she hooks me up with a camera guy, and we go down to the lake, launch the boat. He sets up all the gear on the back deck, and he says, okay, go. And I was like, what do you mean? I don't know what I'm supposed to do. He said, well, just tell me how the fishing's been this year. And I rattled off some crap about weed growth, and I don't know what I was talking about, but it was something. And it came out, and he put his camera away, and I dropped him off at the station. And I was like, oh, okay, we'll see how that works out. I got home that night, and, this is 20 years ago. I didn't have a cell phone. I mean, I didn't have a vehicle that would not catch fire for an hour, so I didn't have a cell phone, obviously. But there was a message on my machine that said, hey, you better watch the news tonight because you're going to be on it. And that's how I started my television career. Went for a year not making squat. And, then I learned about sponsors, and one thing led to another, and it evolved into, the half-hour show. And it's kind of weird, but that's what I did.
For the young guys out there who are watching right now and at home, you got to just do it. You can't be afraid, or, the fear. You can ask Amber. I've been doing fear fishing. I started in Marley and I, what it was, like 2008, we made our first fishing video. And we kind of just coasted along, and we did our thing. And then it kind of got better and better and better. And then one day I get home, and I'm like, I'm going to do a webcast. And Amber comes down the stairs of our house, and I am throwing this room. I'm throwing stuff out the door, and she's like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm doing a webcast. And she's like, what the hell is a webcast? And I was like, I'm pretty much going to talk about fishing. And I just spoke to you. That was the first time and you got to just get out there and do it. And this is how it sounds like anything that's going to be fun in life, people are going to tell you you're crazy until you get there.
There's not one person on earth that has a cool job that people said, yeah, that's a great idea. You should do that.
Absolutely.
Conor McGregor. Back to MMA.
Yeah.
3 years ago, dude was literally on food stamps.
Yeah.
And decided, I'm going to go get in a cage.
Yeah.
With another man that's been training to get into said cage in front of 20,000 people to fight him. And anybody has a cool job, there's always risks. And one of the best things that you can ever do if you're thinking about anything in life is Google this. I mean, Google Jim Carrey's commencement speech.
I've seen that.
Because it's an incredible speech where he talks about he honestly believes that his dad was a much funnier comedian than him. He said his dad could have been the biggest stand-up comic of our lifetime, in his opinion. But his dad stepped away from that and became an accountant because he was being responsible and he was, caring for his family. And then one day, he got fired from his accountant job. And Jim Carrey decided then, if you can lose everything being responsible, then you might as well just risk to do something you love. And that's basically, nobody that got into fishing, honestly, got into it to say, hey, I want to get into fishing because I'm going to make tons and tons of money. I mean, I just wanted to fish. And I honestly do believe that. If you love something enough, and you're willing to work. And there's a fine line there because you hear people all the time. I mean, every single tournament weigh-in, I guarantee that some of the people here today, if you talk to them, they'd be like, well, yeah, if I had that opportunity, I'd totally, Kevin Van Dam wouldn't have squat on me. There is a difference between wanting something and needing something. And I honestly think everybody on earth is meant to do certain things. And if you follow your true dream and what you really love, you can accomplish it, but you have to be willing to work. And you don't have to want something, you have to need it. And for me, not making a living fishing was never an option. Like I never stopped and thought, man, maybe I should just become a real estate agent or an insurance agent. That was what I was going to do. One of the big advantages that I had was I started young.
Yeah.
When you make nothing, it's not really hard to replace your income. It becomes really difficult for people. I mean, I'll run into a lot of incredible anglers that, they're 50, they've got a good job, they're established, and they're like, hey, I want to do that. I just need to replace my $150,000 income.
Yeah.
It's really tough to do at the start.
For sure.
But, if you love something, you're willing to work hard enough at it, I think you can do anything you want.
That's great advice. And
my coffee's almost empty.
I just want to point out that you brought up Jim Carrey, and I wrote myself $1 million check last year.
Come on!
I totally did. Right after Jim.
When are you going to cash it in? Right after his Bassmaster Classic?
Yeah, no doubt.
What is your timeline?
I actually missed my timeline. I put it for this August.
You want to make $1 million by August?
Yeah.
But
how
long
become
ago
a drug
did you
dealer?
I mean, how do you Pablo over there.
No, it was a year. I think it was a year. About a year.
You gave yourself a year to make $1 million?
Yeah.
You didn't tell me?
No. You saw the
What
check.
are you up to?
Wow.
Hiding stuff from him,
No,
trying to make $1 million.
No wonder you're able to finance this fear fishing so well.
That's what I need the money for.
Now how many facts of fishing, the short versions, are there?
I'm going to sound really educated and say 10,200. I don't know.
A lot?
A lot, yeah. At one time, that's all we did. Before we got into the half-hour thing, we'd make like 200-300 a year.
Wow.
So there's a bunch of them out there.
There is.
A lot of them suck. I'll be honest. A lot of them weren't good. But there's some good ones. But there's a bunch of them.
And then you went to, again, being a huge fishing geek as I am, I remember on WFN, like the big, December 31st, the Dave Mercer, Facts of Fishing, the full show is coming out. How much different, like filming a simple fact is tough. I'm sure you guys went through and you're like, when are we going to talk about this time? And now you're doing 30-minute show. What was that jumping into that?
I didn't find it to be any harder, to be honest. I mean, to be totally honest, it was actually easier. I mean, because when you make a 1 minute tip, you got to keep on time, and you got to make sure you get all the information out. And I don't know if you realize this, but I'm a little long-winded at times, so that could be difficult for me. So doing the half-hour show, and the way we do the show is so different. At the time, I still remember when we launched that show, there was other shows making fun of us for using 2 cameras, and now every show is using multiple cameras. And but it's very much just what happens. We don't try to set things up. We don't try to turn it into a science experiment, and it's what happens. So basically, they just followed me along, and we made it. So it wasn't that big of a transition. But the hardest transition was with sponsors, because for years I kept telling sponsors not to sponsor TV shows, sponsor these tips, because if you sponsor our tips are on, the Weather Network, they're on during sports events, and you're going to get more viewership. And then all of a sudden I had to go back to all the sponsors and say, oh, I was totally wrong. You should sponsor it. There is one show you should probably sponsor.
Wow, was I ever wrong? Yeah, that's awesome.
And really the only reason we got into the half-hour show, for the longest time I said, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to stick with what makes us different. And that's the biggest thing, honestly, that I can give advice to anyone is be original, be yourself. I mean, the world is full of copycats. You need to be yourself. And I'll be honest, when I first started, I was probably the world's worst Al Linder, Babazumi, Reno Viola knockoff out there, because I grew up thinking I had to be that. And at some point early on in the tips, I just realized, this is the person I am, and this is what I should do. And that's when they got more successful. But the whole reason we did the tip, we went to the half-hour show, is because, whoa, wow, it's another coffee? I'm exhausted. It's great coffee here on FearFishing. The whole reason we went to the half-hour show is because Bass Pro Shops asked us to do a DVD series. And I kind of thought, well, we'll do this DVD series. And we've always been lucky to have some great supportive viewers. And a lot of kids. That's the weird thing, because my show was never designed for kids, but obviously I'm very immature, and for some reason kids like that. So we thought this will be a good opportunity, because we had a lot of kids saying, when are you going to start a half-hour show? So we said we'd do these DVDs, and they'll stop bugging us to do a half-hour show. And it actually made it tenfold. I mean, that DVD, by some freak of nature, went on to be the #1 selling DVD in Bass Pro Shops company-wide. And it was only available in one store.
And that was Long Lining Chinooks.
In one of them, yes.
Yeah. I had it. Yeah, I did, totally.
But that went really well, and then we kind of moved off to the half-hour show, and Lord only knows where we'll end up next.
Through all of this, did you ever think you'd be the MC of the Bassmaster Elite Series?
Totally. Planned it.
On my check.
In grade 5, I wrote it on a little piece of paper. No, I didn't. And that was a dream job for me. And when I say that, I mean, I do definitely think in my heart, I thought one day I could have that job. But it's such a weird thing that you don't tell people. That's like a really good stand-up comic saying, I want to host the Tonight Show. You could be the best stand-up comic in the world, but the Tonight Show doesn't often hire. So there's a lot of luck involved in things, but I am a firm believer in you can do anything you want, but you also should never limit yourself. You see a lot of people who will give you business advice, and their business advice is make a 5-year plan, say where you want to be. I've never made a 5-year plan in my life. You know why? Because 5-year plans, in my opinion, it's good to have long-term goals, but 5-year plans, if I wrote on a 5-year plan, I'd like to be the MC of the Elite Series.
How do you work towards that? How do you do what steps do you? There's no steps.
Yeah,
it just happens.
So I don't want to write a plan, because 5 years ago I could never imagined of where we'd be today, and I don't know where we'll be in 5 years. So if you write a plan, you're probably going to be selling yourself short. In my opinion.
Totally limit yourself, because we've been told several times to write 5-year plans.
Yeah.
It's a 5-year
I don't
plan,
even know what I'm doing next week. Like, whatever comes into this head of mine, we're going to do. And it's that. Our house is craziness. I'll come home and I'll be like, oh, you wouldn't even believe the fishing adventures and stuff that come up in my head. And she's like cooking dinner, and I'm like packing my bags, and I'm like, oh, I'm going here. I'm gonna catch big fish. I'll see you, Tuesday. Love you. Bye.
She's very supportive.
She is amazing. Absolutely.
If she ever makes that $1 million, you are so done. She's totally gone.
Lockdown.
I'll give you my number.
She allowed, and we talked about this with JP, but we were going to get married last August. I blew my boat engine up, and she spent her wedding money on a new boat engine.
All of this will be brought up in the divorce. Don't
Yeah,
you worry.
for sure.
There'll be a lawyer that sits here.
Yeah, totally. When we're at, and they'll
Tells you
play
about-
this clip, and they'll be like, "Remember when you said Amber's boat engine?"
Well, I got a Facebook message here from, and I'm sure if I haven't fully been fizzed yet, I'm gonna get
This is
fizzed
it?
after this. But Brian the Carpenter,
Hey, what up?
Fan of the show.
name dropping. He wants
is
to know.
Brian the Carpenter already? Is Brian Carpenter a name drop already? Is he?
Oh, he's not far.
Last week during our webcast, we're talking along, and I think we were talking to Shyrock,
Yeah.
and my phone's going crazy.
Shryock.
Yeah, he's like that.
Fryock.
I pick up my phone, and it's Brian, and he says, "I got a question for your webcast.
I think
Rumor
this is the
has
same
it,
one.
Dave Mercer's Canadian."
It's a rumor.
It's a rumor.
There is a good chance. I cannot confirm nor deny.
Well, he wants to know if it's true that our smallmouth bass in predominantly French provinces, are they generally ruder than English-speaking cousins?
100%. The perfect comment to make here at Gagnon Sports.
Hey, like I said, I might get fizzed yet.
I like smallmouth wherever they are, but
Yeah, for sure.
I don't speak a lot of French, so they probably don't
Yeah.
like me as much.
Just like Brian to jump right in there. Eh? He's the man. He really pays attention to this
Teaches you
spearfishing
how
He
stuff.
to
Eh?
does.
catch
What the
cats.
hell else has he got to do? I mean, he's Brian the Carpenter, but I don't really know if he's a real carpenter. I mean, I don't. But can you ask him next time you're on with him? Ask him what he does for a living, because I don't think he's
I will
really a
ask him.
carpenter.
Actually, I heard I heard he's a professional cat wrangler.
Wow.
That's what I've been
that
told.
The Ike show's like herding
Herding
cats.
cats.
He told us
Nice,
full-time herding of cats.
good times.
Yeah, no doubt. When we did Ike's interview, he was Ike's talking to us, and Brian told us up front, he's like, "When you see me walk behind the back, it means cut Ike off. I need him." And that was the only way Brian had let us talk to him. He's like, "As soon as I walk behind, know that that's the end of this."
But it was really hard to figure out that it was him right away because he kept coming in.
Oh
with
yeah, those
different
guys are
costumes.
jokers. Those guys totally messed with us all day. It was good. They have a lot of fun down there, and you're going to be there December 20th.
I'm not going to be there, but
Well,
through,
you'll be on the show.
through the magic of Skype, I will be there.
That's
yes.
awesome.
I think we're doing not on the 20th anymore. I think we moved it to 22nd, but I'm going to be doing that live from my bar.
Nice.
In my basement.
Nice.
So it'll be awesome.
Getting to fish, because you get to fish with elite level guys now on your show or fun fishing. What is the next level of fishing that they take it to? What are the things they're doing that the rest of us are missing? Or is it just what we're doing just a little better?
It's weird because in fishing we always want to search for that thing.
Mhm.
Is it a bait? Is it an approach? And honestly, very little of it is that, if you ask me. The majority of it is they're better. And people don't like to say that in fishing, but they're that much better. They cast that much better. They depict water. They break down the water a lot quicker, and they're so much more versatile. You take some incredible Ontario anglers here, but realistically, if you're going to make it in any of the circuits in Ontario, you literally could do it with 6 rods.
Absolutely.
When you think about, you throw a jig, you can, you throw a frog some, you're going to have some smallmouth rods, a drop shot, a tube. But really, it's not that versatile. Those guys down there, they live on the water. And you can see, too, when guys are pulled off the water, how their standings start to drop, when guys get a lot of pressure on them with family or business. But honestly, I think that there isn't a lot that I've seen where I'm like, look what he just did. Amazing.
No drop shotting frogs.
It's nothing like that. But it is stuff where you're like, you watch Kevin Van Dam work down a shoreline with a jerkbait, and you look over, and he casts across, to the point over there where 90% of people would just keep going around, and you'll hit that point eventually. One of the craziest guys to cover, and one of the most fun guys for me to cover, is Aaron. Mm-hmm. And obviously, over the last few years, we've covered Aaron a lot. But Aaron sees water different than anybody I've ever been with, honestly. I'll give you a story. We were in La Crosse, Wisconsin 3 years ago, and myself and James Overstreet were covering him. And me and Jo we're kind of a team. The first few days of the tournament, we're always together. And we saw Aaron the first day, and we covered him a little bit. And the next day I said to him, Aaron, we're coming to that area you're fishing. Where do you want us to be? Because he was fishing a long cut. And he wasn't fishing the sides, though. He was fishing the middle of it. And there was some trees in the middle of that. Mm-hmm. And there was like 50 or 60 boats out front of that cut watching Aaron while he was fishing. And I said, we can't be in the flotilla boats. We need to be closer to cover it. And he said, no problem, bro. Just put your poles down on the other side. You're totally fine. And I said, okay. So we go there, and this is a spot where he was catching tons and tons of fish. And we go there, and we put the poles down. We sit and watch, and an hour and a half in, he hasn't caught one fish.
Wow.
And we're like, ooh, uncomfortable. and the weirdest thing about that, too, is people forget how much their voice carries on the water.
Yep.
Because you want to talk about pressure. You're not catching them. You're fishing for $100,000. You got 50 people there cheering you on, but they don't know their voice carries, and they'll have conversations like somebody new will pull up and say, do you get him? No. He's really sucking today. And they forget that Aaron can hear that. It's kind of humorous, but so after an hour and a half, he turns to me, he's like, bro, you got to totally move. You guys are ruining everything. You're destroying it. I'm like, Aaron, you told us to. We're right where you told. No, you're interrupting the shed. The shed come down this way, and your boat's parked there. You're interrupting the shed, so there's no way I'm ever going to get them. If they don't get to the trees, I'm not going to be able to catch them. And I'm like, oh, okay, we'll move, Aaron. I looked at Overstreet. I'm like, wow, this guy is totally nuts. What is he thinking? What an idiot. I mean, sure, it's our fault.
Yeah.
We move out 10 minutes later. He loads the boat. And
wow.
And I never would have thought of that. I never, whether it was true or was coincidence, I never would have thought, that boat is interrupting the shed, moving into the bay. It's amazing the way their brains work. I mean, they are... But they're on the water every single day.
And that's the thing that I hear in Ontario all the time, that, I pulled up to this stretch and somebody saw me fishing there, and then they took my spot. If you're a Bassmaster Elite guy and one of the real superstars, 50 people saw your spot today.
Yeah.
And there's a good chance as soon as you left, they fished it.
Or while you're there.
Yeah.
I mean, we see it all the time. And you see people that will idle right by them while they're competing and press the buttons, and it's not against the rules. It's kind of, unsportsmanlike a little bit. But it's something that they deal with that no other. I mean, you go to the Masters and you take a picture too loud, and Tiger Woods is going to have you thrown out of there.
Yeah.
I've seen, guys like Kevin Van Dam, directing traffic, talking to his flotilla, because they cannot tell them to leave, too. That's in the rules. They cannot tell the guys, get out of here. So they're directing traffic, just saying, hey, if you don't mind, can you give me some space here? This is where I'm working. Because, as you guys know, I mean, you may be fishing this point, but you're going to the next one. So if those guys back up on there, they're going to ruin your spot before you ever get to it. So he's directing traffic, talking to the ESPN cameras, and fighting a fish. Like, dealing with all this, it's incredible, really, to see.
And that's part of the mental game of fishing. And one boat can get in somebody's head here. My fishing's got a lot better over the years in tournaments as soon as I let that stuff go. Where it is what it is. I film all my tournament spots, and if you beat me to that spot, it's yours. I'll go find somewhere else to fish. And, it's the more and more I talk to Elite Series anglers, the more and more you realize how, they just kind of block it out. It just is what it is.
You have to.
Yeah.
You have no choice. I mean, it's what you got to deal with. It's part, the Classic's a prime example. It is the coolest sports spectacle out there, if you ask me. But it is a mental drain on those guys, because they've got all those people watching them. They've got everything going on around them. But you got no choice but to block it.
And at the end of their day, like at the end of day one, they got sponsor commitments to do. They're not just going home to put their feet up on their their couch, they got to keep going.
And rig their rods, and if they had some problems with their boats, they got to go to the service yard. I mean, there's a lot involved. And you take this year's Classic, it's an hour and a half from weigh-in to the lake.
Wow.
So you add that time, extra time in the morning, extra time at the end of the day. I mean, there's not a lot of time. So it's amazing what they do. It really, truly is.
How was the experience as being the MC? Now you're there for all these moments. You're in the camera, when somebody wins a Bassmasters or the Toyota Big Bass Classic, when Brent Ayler won that's an amazing story. What is it like to be in the stadium, in there?
It's honestly, it's weird. It's one of those things you don't really think of while you're doing it, in the way that, and I think it's the same, for the guys competing and stuff. I don't think they think, hey, I'm in the Classic, that sets into you. But while you're doing it, you're doing your job. But it is one of those things that afterwards you're like, wow. The first time it ever hit me was after the first Classic I did. Kevin won it, and I remember, the Classic is such a mentally draining, insane experience. It's the coolest thing I've ever done work-wise in my life, but it is also the biggest thing I underestimated. Going into it, I thought, this will be simple. I mean, I'm just going to announce some boats and do whatever. But the day after the Classic, you can see everybody who competed or worked in the Classic, because we're all like walking through the airport like zombies.
Yeah.
But I remember walking past this sports bar, and they had a big wall of TVs, and ESPN just happened to be on Sports Center, and I'm like, whoa, there I am announcing Kevin. And it was one of those moments where I was like, wow, that was really cool. But I mean, when you're doing it, you don't think about it. It's
exciting for us at home, because now we get to watch and we're like, oh my God, that's Dave. Oh my God, that's Dave. Look at when Swindle did his Blue Moon of the shad bite, the sweep into him. We're like, there's Dave. Dave got to do that. That's awesome. Like,
it's a lot of
huge.
fun. I mean, it's weird. When I watch it, I wonder how the hell I got there. To be honest, like, I watch it and I'm like, what? My voice is horrible. That guy's so unprofessional. Why did they hire him? But I guess that's a good thing, because if I watched it and was like, hey, here's my part, everyone watch, you'd just be a real douchebag, I guess, if you were that way. But, so I mean, it's really cool to be there for the biggest moments in people's lives. But the bad part about it is I'm also this far away from guys at the worst moment of their life. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
Somebody's got to lose, and we're the most evil sport.
Absolutely.
When you think about it, we're the original American Idol. I mean, you compete, you do your thing, and then we stand you up in front of everybody, side by side.
With one fish sometimes.
Yeah. And we say, everybody pay attention, because one of these guys is about to lose.
Yeah.
And you guys are going to see them. In other sports, golf again, you can lose in front of giant groups of people, but you're focused on hitting the ball. Now we just have you stare out to the crowd and and one of you gets eliminated.
And that's one of the good and bad things about fishing tournaments, is that on your absolute hardest day of a tournament, somebody is wailing the shit out of them out there.
Always.
Somebody's having the day of their life. And that's the beauty of fishing. Of tournament bass fishing. There's not one way to catch them. There's 10 trillion ways to catch them.
And you never know if you're catching them well enough.
That's right.
The thing. You might have 20 pounds, and everybody's had that situation. You come in, you're like, whoa, I'm in 10th. I thought I was going to win this. The worst thing that happened to me in my career, honestly, was I won a tournament on Rice Lake, and it was a pretty big tournament. It was a one that we used to do with the NHLPA, and it was, Zumi fished it. A lot of pros fished it, and we'd pair with a hockey player. And it sucked on Rice Lake. And I caught like 12 pounds of fish under the Butley docks and came in, and we're going back, and I'm like, yeah, it sucked. We go into the lock because the weigh-in was in a little lake, and we locked through, and I'm talking to all the competitors. I'm like, yeah, it was horrible. I have 5 little squeakers, and they're all like, you got 5? And I'm like, what? So I won that tournament with 12 pounds. So it's totally screwed my life, because now every tournament I ever fish in, I'm like, well, maybe it's enough, guys. I mean, I thought 20 would win, but I won once with 12
I've got 2 of those classic stories, both on Rice Lake. Rice Lake's my home lake, and the only place that I cannot win a tournament. Lots of second and thirds. One time, Marley and I we rolled in. We had maybe 15 pound live well, and we heard over the announcements, 17, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I don't want to weigh in, throw them over. Well, 15.
That's bad sportsmanship, right there.
Yeah, and when I was like 22 years old, and
So
you
it's
know,
okay to
a kid.
be a
Yeah,
jerk.
I was a kid.
All right.
Threw away probably the 4th place bag. Do you remember that down in Hastings? Another time, and this is this is how bad my luck is on rice. Like we go out there and we catch this giant bag of smallies, and I thought we had this for sure. We're coming in, I weigh our fish in, give my bag of fish over, and I turn around and I see Corey Johnson, and he kind of gives me a wink. Weighed in an 8-1 largemouth to be with it, yeah, and I was like, you got to be kidding me. Look, what do we have to do? But that's the beauty
do you
of
ever
it.
think that a whole bunch of tournament anglers are going to get together, show up at the Johnson's house, and just kick the crap out of them? I mean, really, they are that good.
They are that good.
And you know what? That's one thing that I do want to point out. We need to give guys like that love. Yeah, and
absolutely.
I'm going to tell you something about Canadians.
Corey and Chris are great guys.
The Canadians don't really. I mean, we're polite. We say please and thank you, but I don't think Canadians support our guys like that are doing as well as they are.
The most frequently asked question I get is, I don't want to fish this tournament because Corey and Chris are going. And I tell them straight out that you've already beat yourself. They're human. And if you want to be a better angler, every tournament I ever fished against them, I thought, oh my God, there's nothing better I'd like to do today than kick the pants off Corey and Chris.
Yeah.
And that's my goal. Dude, we're here to compete. If they beat you 9 out of 10 times, which is probably going to happen, you still got 1 on them.
But it's awesome what they're
doing. It is absolutely amazing.
And it's I say
if you want to
Canadian
be
thing,
the best,
but
fish against the best.
Ontario thing, really.
Yeah,
Because most of the tournaments, most of the bass tournaments of the guys that will compete against Corey and Chris, it's in Ontario, and it's just now we're starting to see those guys get a little respect. Because I'll be honest, up till now they were cheaters. Right? You talk to anybody, totally cheated. Anybody you want to be called a cheater, guaranteed just do well in tournaments, and you will be a cheater.
That's kind of like the Canadian mold, though. I think the cheating thing comes from jealousy because you can't believe in your head how good they are to do this over and over again. But I hear all the time I'm the biggest asshole in Canadian fishing because I started this webcast. Yeah,
good point.
I hear that all the time. So you're never going to please everybody. I assure everybody they're as good as they are because I've fished right beside them and watched them spank the pants off them while I'm like, what are you? I can't get a fish here. I'm leaving because Corey and Chris are here. And, they put more work than anybody else in. They've been doing this since they were 12 or 13. They're the real deal. And everybody in Canada should get behind them. And, next season when they're in the States, those are our guys. And
and they'll do well.
They're going to do well.
They're going to do well. They're that good. But
they are.
I mean, they were bred to do it. I mean, Lynn's an incredible angler, and they grew up around it. And I just think it's important, and not just for those guys, but any of the guys that we should support them. You
Absolutely.
know what I mean? And it's a weird little thing. I always use the example.
It's a really tight-knit community
Yeah.
here. I don't think people realize how tight this group is. There's not many guys doing this.
No, I mean it's a tight knit. It's a very big business, but it's a very small group, and I think that's something that to make things better. We need to support them,
Absolutely.
and not just them, but anything. You know what anything that's happening in the industry is a good thing, and that's why right away I support you on this. It's
absolutely.
Good. The worst thing in the world is to be that guy who does nothing, who doesn't contribute to the industry, but complains about everybody. I mean, go out there and be the change, and so stop. Stop picking on the Johnsons.
There's times,
just keep kicking your butt.
That's right. And I can remember times when I was people would ask me, "What do you think? You think Corey and Chris are cheating?" I'd be like, I wish they were cheating because then I wouldn't be such a shitty angler. This would make me feel better. But I was like, sadly, they're born to do this.
Yeah.
That's right.
They're 1%ers in the tournament world. They are machines.
But that's a fishing thing.
It is.
We all good God, a little professionalism. Your cell phone is, I mean, even I turned the ringer off on mine.
That'd be Ian's.
It's a fishing thing, like in other sports, hockey. It's okay to say, hey, everybody's got that buddy, that, oh, he was really good. He just wasn't good enough to make the NHL.
Yep.
He almost did. And we say that about other sports, but you never say that in fishing because I think just since we're kids, it's ingrained into us. We're surrounded by excuses.
Yep.
The fish aren't biting because of the lake, the weather conditions, the pressure, the lure's wrong. We blame. I always say we're like a bunch of little kids with our video game remote. When you lose the game, it's not because your jump button didn't work. It totally did work. You didn't press it fast enough.
Looking back last year, we weighed in 18 pounds day 1 of Tri-Lakes, and day 2, 7 pounds. And I went up there, and they were like, well, what changed today? And I grabbed a hold of the microphone. I said, I suck. That's the only thing that changed out there is I suck today. It wasn't the wind or the moon. It was me.
We have a
got a question
from the audience here.
Do you like fishing for smallmouth or largemouth better? And what's your favorite lure?
Those are tough questions. I go through phases. I think I grew up on Lake Scugog, so I'm obviously a pretty big largemouth guy. I love largemouth fishing, but I do a lot of smallmouth fishing too. I can't pick one. I mean, honestly, it's kind of one of those deals that after I've done a bunch of spring stuff on Erie and caught a ton of smallmouth, I really look forward to largemouth fishing. And then after I do that for a while, I look forward to smallmouth fishing. So I like them both pretty much equally. And as far as a lure, if I had to choose one lure to use for the rest of my life, it's tough. I'm gonna say probably there's no more fun than catching a largemouth on a frog. On a topwater hollow body frog, there's no more fun than that. So that's probably what I go with. But I'm not saying that's my favorite lure, that's the one I use all the time. That's my favorite because it's a lot of fun to catch them that way. I don't have a favorite lure, honestly. And I always tell people in seminars, that's one of the worst things you can do is have a favorite lure. Because, if you have that favorite lure and you stick with it, when it's not working, you start blaming the fish. So I early on, and we talked before we started here. I know you're 13 years old. This dude is going to take my job. He's 13 years old, right? You said
yeah.
He's got almost the exact same boat I had when I was 13 years old.
Nice.
He's joined the Bass Club, so he's all set. But the best thing to do is think of lures like a golfer. Think of it in you here I'm making a lot of analogies to other sports because this is a sport in my opinion, but we use that 4-letter word luck way too much. You should think of it as a golfer. I mean, if a golfer's really good at putting but he's horrible at driving, he goes to a driving range, but nobody goes to a fishing range. When you want to learn about a new technique, whether it's fishing a jig, I want to become good at fishing a jig, just take jigs that day. Just take jigs and learn how to become good at it. I remember quite a few years ago when drop shot was really taking off, and we knew drop shot's going to be a big thing that if I want to compete in tournaments I'm going to have to be good at. I only fished a drop shot that spring on Erie when there was days that a tube was better, there was days that swim bait was better, but I only fished a drop shot because I wanted to become really good at it. And the best way to become good at it is to force yourself, because everybody's the same. You grab that brand new lure, and if you catch a fish on it in the first 10 minutes, it's now one of your favorites. You're going to love it forever. If you don't, that sucks, and you never tie it on again. So the best way is just take that one bait and become proficient at it. So I think I kind of answered a little.
That was beautiful. We got another question.
What is your favorite lake to fish on?
My favorite lake to fish on, if I had to choose one lake, I'd probably have to say Lake Erie.
Erie, eh?
It's that part of the world. If it wasn't for my family, I'd probably move there. Right near Buffalo,
Yep.
on the Canadian side. Just because it's
Beautiful. We fish down there a lot too.
You catch 100 fish a day is nothing
It's
that anybody, nobody. You're not gonna be in the newspaper because you caught 100 fish. You're just another guy who caught 100 fish. And I love dumb fish, and there's a lot of them.
They're getting bigger too, eh?
Lake Erie.
Erie fish, they're getting bigger. Like the average, 1 over is getting bigger and bigger.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Well, a lot's happened over the last number of years that's made it that way. Obviously, gobies, zebra mussels has made it clear. There's so many reasons that those fish are just exploding.
You think the Erie fishery is better than the Lake Ontario Kingston area?
I'd say so.
Yeah.
I think that if the Kingston end of Lake Ontario, and it's incredible.
It just doesn't have the numbers.
We're talking about A+ and A.
Yep.
They're
yeah.
both incredible. But if that area, if Kingston got the pressure that Erie got, it would
Yeah,
crumble.
yeah. I
in
agree.
my opinion.
Yep.
Now that could change in the next number of years.
I
5
agree
years
there.
from now, we may say no, they're totally on par, or maybe Kingston's better. But I think right now Lake Erie is pretty tough to beat.
Yeah, I agree. It doesn't seem nearly the pressure. No. It's night and day on the pressure thing. Well, Dave, I want to thank you so much for doing this.
Is this it?
This has been amazing.
Wow.
No. There's
I really
one more.
was going to open up.
Hey, if you want to lay down and talk, we're good.
I got to get off.
Do you want this couch?
Yeah. Why the hell am I stuck on this chair when you guys get the Dr. Phil couch? What are you thinking?
Before we let you go, though, you got to tell us your favorite fishing story. Your best fishing story, the most memorable, whatever you got.
I don't know. How long do I have?
You got as long as you want.
All right. This is going to be about 40, 45 minutes. So those you watching online might want to skim ahead. I'm going to that's tough. I mean, there's so many. Give me some.
It could even be memorable moment in fishing.
Or a night before fishing?
What you guys?
Yeah, you got a good night before
fishing?
Yeah,
Like CBAF back in the day.
Not talking about
night before fishing, I get in my Zen state. Focus. I've got a ton of stories, but I mean, I guess if I had to choose one of them, I'm going to follow your lead, because you guys were talking about your wedding, and I know JP was talking about his honeymoon. I'll just tell you what happened on my honeymoon, because I grew up being a fishing freak, like we've already discussed, and I always wanted to fish on my honeymoon. Not for anything, I just wanted to fish on my honeymoon. So me and my beautiful wife, Sarah, get married. I'm just saying that because I made fun of her earlier. We get married, and what a great wife I have. She goes down and she books me this charter trip without me even knowing. We're in Mexico, and we were probably out the night before, but she shows me this postcard, and it is, it says 40-foot deep sea fishing, and it's like a Budweiser commercial. It's got chicks in bikinis and big shiny reels, and I'm like, oh, I can't wait till tomorrow. So we went to Cancun that night on Extreme Party.
Yep.
We weren't allowed to go on Super Extreme Party because we were married. They asked. The guy said, you want to go on Extreme Party, Super Extreme Party, or just Party? And I'm like, well, which would you recommend? He's like, are you guys married? Just go on Extreme Party. You can't go on Super Extreme. So we went on, and we get up at 5. I can tell you stories about that stuff. Good God. There's things you can't do in Mexico, evidently. We found out about it. There's children here, so I can't tell the story, but tune in another time. So we go that next morning, we get up at 5 o'clock or whatever, and we walk to the end of the dock to see my 40-foot boat that my beautiful wife has booked for us to go fishing. And we walk down there, and there's a 40-foot boat, but it's about 4 feet wide. I don't know how they angled the picture on the postcard, but it didn't line up to me. And we get on the boat. It's got 2 engines. One of them works. The other one just smokes. And we get out there, and it is rough. All the other boats didn't go, but hey, I'm a fisherman. I'm going to go fishing. It's my honeymoon. So we go out there, and we are up and down these waves. And I have never been seasick in my life, but I learned that when you start to think you're seasick, you are. It's too late. So I'm there, and the waves are, and the smoke keeps blowing in my face, and I'm getting seasick, and I start chumming. I mean, I start puking off the side of my boat. And the captain comes over to me, this little Mexican dude. He's like, Senor, are you okay? And I'm like, totally fine, because that's what you say when you're puking, right? Nobody ever says, no, I'm a mess, look at me, which is the dumbest question. People, life lesson, if you see somebody puking, they're not okay. And I said, no, I'm totally fine. And I'm chumming, and there's little tiny fish feeding. It was beautiful. And he was a good captain. So he's like, Senor, where are you from? And I said, I'm from Toronto. And he says, Toronto, home of the Blue Jays? And I'm like, yes. Yeah. He goes, I love the Toronto Blue Jays. And I'm like, ooh, that's good. And he keeps asking me questions. And finally he says, Senor, what do you do for a living? And I'm like, I'm a professional fisherman. I have never heard a Mexican dude laugh as loud in my life. I mean, still to this day, he probably tells people, "Oh, the guy tried to convince me he was a professional fisherman." But that was kind of
That's
one
awesome.
of the stories.
That's
But I
great.
mean, I have a lot of ridiculous stories that have happened to me over the years, but that's why I love what I do. I mean, I literally, when I was 13 years old and had to fight Justin away, because you know what Justin's job was when I was 13?
What's that?
To screw up the cash register. Paul Bart is working here, and he will tell you, I mean, he was such a snot-nosed little jerk. I mean, Noel was pretty cool, but
Yeah,
Justin, dude, all he ever did was, I'll show you, my mom and dad own this place. And next thing you know, all this, the cash register tapes everywhere, and Natalie said I owed $3,000. So I think maybe Natalie was behind the cash register thing. I don't know, but I had the job that I wanted when I was a little kid. I mean, what I wanted to do when I worked in here, what I dreamed about doing, is what I do, and I never take that for granted. I'm truly one of the luckiest, most blessed people on earth, and I joke a lot and everything, but I'm a very, very lucky person, and I'm very thankful because. I grew up. I lived in Ireland until I was 5, and my family only moved to Canada for one reason, and that was so their kids could have a better life. I mean, they had a lot of good stuff in Ireland. They financially were doing better. They were a young couple, and you start to work your way up. But the problem was my mom was Catholic, my dad was Protestant, which made us Canadian.
Yeah.
But I'm thankful they moved here because. Without being here, I never would have had this opportunity, and I'm loving every minute of it.
It's awesome, man. It's inspiring. Since we got to watch the whole thing, right from the VR to the Bassmaster Classic, it's really inspiring stuff, man. And I really appreciate you being here.
Can I punch you in the mouth like your 7-year-old brother?
No.
I mean, just come on, it'd be great. Just one quick shot.
Okay, just one after camera. We could turn this into an octagon and we could film that.
All right.
Yeah?
All right.
I think you got a little weight on me, but I got some reach.
Okay. All right.
It might square up. That'll be live on Periscope.
If he wins, he'll totally show it to you guys.
Yeah. Well, this has been a huge day, and I want to thank everybody at Gagnon for having us. This has been a pretty cool backdrop. It was a huge pain to get here. It was a lot of work. We had to rip all this apart. We're not the most tech savvy guys in the world, so we were happy we got together the first time. So this morning when we were ripping it apart, we were making little notes and
Whose house is this carpet from?
Mine.
Oh yeah.
This
There's been some partying on this carpet.
This is the studio.
Those
This
are
is
the
the studio.
carpets that I said no more. They're going away, and they were in the dump pile.
And
then
Ian was like,
they
"No."
somehow-
How could you put this in
right.
the dump
They
pile?
somehow lived, and they ended up in our studio.
They're beer soaked,
They're bachelor parties.
yeah. These are the studio carpets. We had to bring them there. Good luck, man.
It's nice and poinsettia. I mean, that's beautiful.
Yeah. Gagnon's had that here for us.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And the Yeti cooler.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's
Are we giving
beautiful.
that away?
I think I already won it.
Oh, okay.
Well, thanks, guys. This has been awesome. Thanks, Gagnon Sports, Rich, Marley, Amber, and especially Dave. It's been huge, and I can just cross this off my bucket list now. I got to do the webcast at Gagnon Sports with Dave.
Wow.
And JP. And thanks, JP.
Yeah.
That was awesome, too. He's so technical.
He's a freak, dude.
He is. It's blowing my mind.
He is. I've always told him he's the Rain Man of one of the coolest things about my job is I get to use the best gear on earth, and I kind of know a little bit about it. But he's totally
12 crankbait rods. That'd blow my brain up out there. It'd just be.
Yeah.
I use 12-pound mono on my cranking rod, and I have one cranking rod, and that's as complicated as I need
What
to
did you
get.
say? 12 cranking rods?
Yeah, with 12 different rods and 12 different line weights. Yeah, tell me about it. Way to complicate things.
I don't have to.
There goes the KISS theory right out the window.
No, nothing he ever does. I mean, he likes to. If you talk to him about fishing knots, and I'm very simple. I mean, I tie a polymer knot.
Yeah.
The knot that I use to join braid and fluoro is called the 3-finger knot because a guy with 3 fingers taught it to me. I figured, hey, if he can tie it. The weird thing is I've been tying it for 20 years and still don't tie it as fast as the dude with 3 fingers. But JP has like knots that involve your feet.
That's what he was telling.
And when a knot involves your feet, do not tie it.
He told us today that he's invented a new way for that special super geriatric rod. Like he doesn't have to use his feet anymore.
Wow.
He's going to make a video and show us all how to do it.
Wow. Awesome.
It's unreal.
Or you could tie a polymer.
Thank you so much for everybody at home who checked this out. It's been a great day. I'm glad you guys could all join us. Rich, Marley, and Amber again, thanks so much, guys. And Adam, behind the producer's chair.
He nailed it.
Quickly.
Good job, Adam.
You did good, man.
I made it.
Justin, thank you. You want to give a shout out on the camera there right behind Adam? There you go. Thank you, Justin.
I am so jacked up from all this coffee. Yeah, I'm not able to sleep.
Till the next one, guys. Thank you very much, and we'll talk to you all